I saved my fiancé, Ethan Sullivan, from drowning even though the water was freezing and the current was strong. Because our bodies touched in the water, Ethan, who had originally planned to break off the engagement, had no choice but to marry me. I spent 30 years serving him, caring for his every need, and even gave birth to a smart, healthy son. But Ethan never loved me. He believed I saved him just to trap him into marriage. So when his precious Bai Yueguang died, he chose to follow her, committing suicide without a second thought. His son, poisoned by his twisted perspective, blamed me, believing it was my refusal to step aside that caused Ethan's lifelong suffering. To avenge his father, my son poured out my emergency heart medication into the sewer and watched me die in agonizing pain. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Ethan fell into the river. But this time, I didn't jump in to save him. Instead, I turned to the son of my father's old comrade, David Walker. He once promised my father he'd take care of me for the rest of my life. I wanted to know, did that promise still count? "Go save Ethan quickly, or someone's going to die," someone shouted. Yeah, Ethan can't swim. My head was foggy, and I had no idea what was happening. I just felt people pushing me toward the edge of the river. It wasn't until a sharp gust of wind hit me that I realized I was standing by the icy water, already taking off my cotton-padded coat. I was about to jump in the dead of winter, to save Ethan Sullivan. But then I caught a glimpse of the propaganda banners nearby, the thick layers of clothes on everyone, and it all clicked. I had been reborn. I was back on the day, 30 years ago, when I saved Ethan's life. In my previous life, I had leapt into that frigid river and nearly died dragging him to shore. Afterward, people started gossiping about how a beautiful girl had saved a handsome man, how indecent it was that we'd been hugging in the water. And since we were already engaged, the Sullivan family rushed to propose the marriage formally. We married in haste. Only after the wedding did I realize Ethan didn't love me at all. He'd wanted to call off the engagement and only went to the river that day to catch fish for Vanessa Rita's precious white moonlight. When I found out, I cried and argued and hoped love would grow with time. I cared for his daily needs, honored his parents, bore him a brilliant son. But his suicide shattered me. I realized that those 30 years meant nothing to him. I was just a woman in a forced marriage. It wasn't until I died that I finally understood. You can warm a heart, but you can't melt ice. The more you try, the more frozen you become. Remembering this, I pulled my thick coat back on. Just as I was about to turn and leave, Ethan, who should have been unconscious in the water, suddenly emerged, swimming smoothly to shore. My brows furrowed. In the past life, Ethan didn't know how to swim at all. He only learned years later after we got married. Before I could process it, he was already standing in front of me, shivering but smug. "You thought I'd give you a chance to save me again?" he sneered. "I've been training for years. God finally gave me a chance to survive on my own." My heart sank. So, I wasn't the only one who was reborn. I chuckled coldly. "Did you not see me walking away? If you hadn't called out, I'd already be home." Ethan glanced down and realized I wasn't undressing to dive. Aini was fully clothed. His face flushed in embarrassment. He tried to argue, but a gust of wind made him shiver and he barked, "Take off your coat. Can't you see I'm freezing?" I scoffed and turned to the crowd. Is there any kind soul willing to lend Ethan a coat? This man wants a girl like me to strip in public just to keep him warm. It's humiliating. Laughter broke out. People started whispering that Ethan was shameless. As a college student and teacher, he had always been admired, never been ridiculed before. His face darkened, but then he forced a smile. I almost drowned and my fiancé didn't even try to save me. I will never marry such a woman. Please bear witness, I am calling off my engagement to Natalie Quinn. From now on, we're strangers. At first, people were stunned. Then murmurs rippled through the crowd. He fell in the water and Natalie didn't jump in? Isn't she a good swimmer? I saw her about to take off her coat, someone said. If I were her, I would have jumped in. It's her fiancé, for heaven's sake. I stayed calm. I had no intention of becoming a social pariah in this new life. I turned to Ethan and said clearly, Ethan, what nonsense are you spouting? You're an excellent swimmer, you just proved it. What reason would I have to jump in? He looked awkward for a moment, but still clenched his jaw. Doesn't matter. You saw me fall in and did nothing. I can't marry someone like that. The engagement's off. People who had defended him before started frowning. Wait, you swam to shore just fine. Natalie didn't do anything wrong. You've been planning to call off the engagement for a while now, haven't you? Someone muttered. Besides, it's winter. She gets sick jumping in.
Sick.
That word hit me hard. In my previous life, jumping into the icy river had wrecked my health. After that, every monthly cycle was pure torture. My fertility had suffered. And after all that sacrifice, Ethan still believed I orchestrated the entire situation to trap him. I looked straight at him and nodded.
Fine.
The engagement is officially cancelled. Everyone here, please be my witness. It was Ethan Sullivan who refused to fulfill our engagement, not me changing my mind. With that, I turned and walked away without hesitation. I ran home, heart pounding. My mother had probably heard about the scene at the river already, because she was standing at the door with her cane, her face full of concern. The moment I saw her, the emotions I'd buried came rushing out. Mom, I choked, my voice trembling with tears. I couldn't help but cry out, Mom, my voice cracked with tears. My mother is blind, so her hearing is incredibly sharp. She immediately heard my sobs and called out, Natalie, don't cry. Take me to the Sullivan house. I'll talk to Ethan and make sure the engagement goes through. But I shook my head and said firmly, no, I don't want to marry Ethan Sullivan. He doesn't love me. I'll never be happy with him. I helped my mother into the living room and gently guided her to sit down in the wooden chair. She let out a long sigh. But if you don't marry Ethan, you'll have to go to the countryside. In the end, it's all because of me. I'm the burden you carry. In my previous life, Ethan and I were a resentful couple bound by obligation. My mother constantly worried about us, and even before she passed, she repeated those same words, that it was her fault, that if she hadn't been a burden, I wouldn't have been forced into a loveless marriage. She blamed herself because she knew that if I didn't marry Ethan, I would be sent away. In truth, I wasn't supposed to go to the countryside. But after my father died, my uncles took the factory quota that should have been mine, leaving me with no choice but to accept exile. My mother believed she failed to protect me and carried that guilt her whole life. Ethan was a teacher. Marrying him meant staying in town, having social privileges, avoiding the fate of being sent away. That's why Ethan always assumed I married him out of convenience, not love. But it wasn't that I feared hard labor or poverty. I just couldn't bear the thought of leaving my blind, frail mother behind. If I left, she'd be tormented or worse be my father's greedy relatives. That thought alone left my chest tight with panic. Half of me was consumed by worry for my mother, the other haunted by the 30 bitter years I'd already lived through. While I stood there paralyzed by my thoughts, a soft cough and the sound of water being poured came from the courtyard. When I looked up and saw him, my heart lit up. Yes, there he was. David Walker. He was the son of my father's battlefield comrade. My father once saved his father's life, and after David's parents passed away, my father helped raise him. On the day my father died, David knelt in front of him and promised, Uncle Quinn, don't worry. I'll take care of Natalie and Auntie for the rest of my life. At the time, I thought he was just saying it to ease my father's mind. I never expected he'd actually mean he'd look after us for decades, never marrying, never asking for anything in return. In my last life, if it weren't for David, his special status job, and unwavering support, I would have been cast out by Ethan long ago. And David was no ordinary worker. He was a skilled technician with high value to the factory. If I married him, I could stay in town without having to fight for a spot. That thought jolted me into action. I rushed outside, but David had already filled the water tank and slipped away quietly. I didn't chase him. Instead, I turned and went straight to the pharmacy. I bought cough medicine and a few patches for the cold. But as I walked out, I ran right into Ethan. He glanced at the medicine in my hand and immediately sneered. Didn't you just say the engagement was off? Why are you buying me meds now?
He assumed I was still thinking about him.
I didn't even bother to explain. I turned to leave, but he suddenly grabbed my arm. Come by the house later. Vanessa's there, and I don't want you bullying her again. Also, I'll take the medicine, but just so you know, you owe me. If you hadn't taken off your coat for me, I wouldn't have caught this cold. I wanted to slap him, but I knew Ethan too well. The more I argued, the more he'd twist my words. So instead, I shot him a glare, yanked my arm away, and walked off. When I got home, I carefully brewed the medicine and went to David's house to knock. He answered with a soft cough and concern in his eyes. Natalie? Is something wrong at home? Wait till I'll grab a coat and come over. I shook my head and held out the medicine. You came to bring us water yesterday, and I heard you coughing. You may be young, but you still need to take care of yourself. If you catch something serious, like pneumonia, that would be bad. My face flushed as I said it. David looked completely thrown off. He didn't know whether to take the medicine, say thank you, or invite me inside. But I didn't give him a chance to overthink it. Back when my father passed, you promised to take care of me for life. Does that promise still stand? He didn't even blink. Of course it does. I exhaled. Okay. If you're going to take care of me for life, then let's get a marriage certificate. Otherwise, what happens if you marry someone else someday? How would you explain still taking care of me? Even though David stayed single in my past life and was always good to me, I couldn't be sure it was truly because of me. I couldn't even be sure he'd want to marry me now. So, I was nervous, but he didn't hesitate for a second. He took the medicine from my hand and drank it all.
Sure.
Whatever you say, I'll do. When are we getting married? My heart pounded.
Now.
The sooner the better. Who knows what kind of drama Ethan's going to stir up next? David stared at me for a moment. I could tell he had something to say, some question to ask, but he kept it to himself. Instead, he turned around, went inside, and came back with his ID. All right, let's go. And just like that, we registered our marriage. We didn't host a big banquet, didn't have many relatives, and mine weren't worth inviting anyway. We simply filed the paperwork and scheduled a meeting with the factory to process my admission. Timing was critical. If we missed this window, all the slots would be gone, and the marriage would have been for nothing. But halfway through the process, chaos erupted outside. Ethan burst into the office with Vanessa Reed right behind him. He stormed in, grabbed the factory director's hand, and shouted, "Director, you can't let her in. She doesn't deserve it." The director jumped in shock. Before he could even speak, Ethan charged toward me, practically jabbing his finger in my face. "Natalie Quinn, do you have no shame? I told you way over. There's nothing between us anymore. Why are you taking my future wife's spot in the factory?" The factory director stood up and tried to mediate. "Ethan, listen, no. I know what you're trying to do," Ethan interrupted. "You think Natalie's family situation is pitiful, so she shouldn't be sent to the countryside. That's fine. That's her business. But don't let her steal my fiancé's spot. Don't make me pay for her excuses. I'm innocent too. I can't ruin my future for someone who refuses to work," Ethan Sullivan snapped, face red with frustration. "It's ridiculous. I took care of a woman who didn't want to work for 30 years, and now suddenly I'm the one labeled lazy." I was just about to respond when the factory director spoke first, cutting in with a calm voice. "Ethan, don't get worked up. Natalie Quinn's factory admission has nothing to do with you. She's eligible because her husband is a specialized technician here. She meets the policy requirements perfectly." Ethan blinked, stunned. Husband? Specialized technician? What husband? What technician? How could she have married someone else? As soon as the words left his mouth, he looked over and noticed David Walker standing next to me, our hands tightly clasped. His gaze slowly dropped to our intertwined fingers, and realization hit him like a truck.
No.
That's impossible. Natalie can't marry anyone else, only me. She loves me. She'd die for me. There's no way she'd marry another man. This has to be fake, just a scheme, so she can stay in the factory. David Walker is nothing but a lapdog for the Quinn family. And if he's helping her with this, then you're all exploiting policy loopholes together. Honestly, it was the first time I had ever seen Ethan lose control like this. Not even when Vanessa Reed married someone else in our past life did he act this crazed. I couldn't understand why he was making such a scene. My staying in the factory had nothing to do with him anymore, and I had no plans to bother him ever again. So, why was he acting like this? I didn't have the answer. But one thing I knew for sure, I had no intention of continuing this argument. I simply turned to David and said, "Honey, show him our marriage certificate." David nodded without hesitation and pulled out our legally stamped document. That red seal was all the proof we needed. We were husband and wife. My admission to the factory was valid and fully in line with all regulations. I assumed Ethan would walk away quietly after seeing the certificate, but instead, it completely broke him. "So, what if it's real?" he yelled. "She only married you to avoid going to the countryside. You're not a real couple. Natalie still loves Mesh, just using you. You're being played by this woman, and you don't even realize how dark her heart is." For a split second, I wanted to leap forward and slap him, but Vanessa was faster. She grabbed Ethan's sleeve and pleaded, "Yifun, please stop. Don't say things like that. You're going to ruin things between Natalie and David." But Ethan shook her off violently. "Shut up. You don't understand anything. Natalie belongs to Mesh's my wife." Vanessa froze, clearly embarrassed by the outburst. Her face darkened and she muttered, "Even if Natalie once wanted to marry you, people can change. Maybe she wanted to join the factory, sure, but that means she could have married anyone. David's just the unlucky one." That stung more than I expected, even though I knew it wasn't true. Ethan turned back to David, wild-eyed. "She jumped into the river just to force me to marry her. What did she do to trap you? Did she strip and throw herself at you too? Did she force you to take responsibility?" "You're insane," I snapped. But before I could say more, David punched him right in the face. "I married Natalie because I love her. I begged her to marry Menet the other way around. Say one more word, and you'll get more than just a punch." Ethan staggered, stunned, murmuring like he'd just been slapped by reality.
"How?
How could she marry someone else?" David didn't even look at him. He gently took my hand and turned to the director. "If the paperwork isn't finished yet, I'll bring my wife back another day. I don't want her to get upset over something this ridiculous." The factory director clearly wanted no part in Ethan's drama. "No need," he said quickly. "Just sign here, and you're all set. It's finished." Word of our marriage spread like wildfire. At first, people gossiped that two men had fought over one woman, but soon, the story twisted into me being a heartless two-timer who played them both. To stop the rumors, David used all his savings to throw a beautiful wedding banquet. During the toast, he raised his glass and looked at me tenderly. They say a family's daughter is pursued by 100 suitors, but I've only ever loved Natalie. She never even looked my way while she was engaged to Ethan, because she's loyal. But fate finally gave me a chance, and the moment they broke off their engagement, I didn't waste it. I asked for her hand right away, because if I had waited even a second longer, someone else might have taken her from me. After that, the public opinion shifted. People stopped criticizing me and started mocking Ethan for being pathetic and unable to let go. After our marriage, my mother and I moved in with David. He was so gentle with me, so considerate. He originally said we should sleep separately on the floor the first night out of respect, but I was the one who pulled him onto the bed. Not long after, we became a real couple. And it was then I realized how sweet and joyful life could be when you're truly loved. The more he cared for me, the more guilty I felt. One evening, I mustered up the courage to confess. But David just shook his head and smiled. "You don't need to explain anything. No matter why you married me, just being with you makes me happy." After that, I couldn't say a word. I simply decided I'd spend the rest of my life proving my love for him. While I was basking in happiness, Ethan was spiraling. We heard from the neighbors that after the wedding banquet, he got drunk fell off his bicycle on the way home, and was too embarrassed to go to the hospital. Days later, when the pain became unbearable, he finally saw a doctor only to learn he had a fracture. Because he waited too long, the bone had already begun to heal improperly, and now it would need to be broken and receive a painful and tedious recovery. People around us whispered that I was a cursed woman. And honestly, they weren't wrong. What happened to him had everything to do with David and me. If Ethan hadn't come to the wedding, if he hadn't cared about what people thought, none of this would have happened. But I felt no sympathy. He brought it on himself. David, on the other hand, didn't share my coldness. One day, he came home with fruit and quietly said, he drank our wine and fell because of us. Let's go visit him. I didn't hesitate. Absolutely not. People are already talking. If we show up there, it'll only give them more to gossip about. If I go, it'll just make things even murkier whether he broke his leg or his brain. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, I already told you, I'm your wife now. I have nothing to do with Ethan Sullivan anymore. David Walker nodded quickly. I know, but what should we do? If we don't go, people will think we're hiding something. So I'll go with you. We'll show up, openly let everyone see we have nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't want to go, but in the end, I agreed. He was right. Some things needed to be made clear. After this, we'd go our separate ways and Ethan and never have anything to do with each other again. When we arrived at the Sullivan house, David waited at the door while I hesitated outside. Just as I was about to knock, I heard voices inside Ethan's and Vanessa Reed's. I froze. I didn't know whether to turn around and leave or walk in like I belonged there. In my past life, every time I found Ethan and Vanessa alone, I'd lose my temper, rush in, and cause a scene. It never ended well. But if I left now, I'd probably have to deal with this all over again later. While I stood there, stuck between past trauma and present uncertainty, the voices inside got louder. Ethan's voice was shaky but determined. Vanessa, my engagement with Natalie is over now, and she's already married. Isn't it time we made our relationship official? Vanessa chuckled coldly. Did you seriously think that just because you didn't marry Natalie, I'd marry you? Ethan sounded stunned. What do you mean? I mean I used to, she said flatly. You really don't see your own situation, do you? Look at her background. Did you really think I'd ever marry someone like you? I'm marrying the factory director's son. I just came here to tell you not to contact me again. The only one who's ever liked you is Natalie. Ethan's world crumbled in an instant. That's impossible. You told me Natalie married me just to get into the factory. You said she planned everything even when I fell into the river. My chest tightened. So that's where he got those horrible ideas. Vanessa. It had all been her doing. Vanessa scoffed. What are you talking about? When did I say that? And what does you falling into the river have to do with Natalie? Did she push you? Ethan fell silent. He started muttering to himself, spiraling into confusion. Vanessa stood up, bored now, and opened the door only to find me standing there holding a bag of fruit. She smirked, looked back at Ethan, and said mockingly, Natalie's here. I suggest you stop dreaming about swans and realize you're just a toad. If you want to cling to someone, cling to her. She's the only one who ever cared about you. I walked in awkwardly. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just came to see how you're doing and drop this off. I didn't get to finish. Ethan looked up, his eyes bloodshot.
I'm sorry, Natalie.
I'm really sorry. My throat tightened. I had waited 30 years to hear that apology. But now that I finally got it, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I didn't respond. Ethan let out a long breath. You were reborn too, weren't you? You don't have to say, I know. In our past life, you didn't hesitate to save me. But this time, you turned and walked away. I thought you were playing hard to get, but now I understand you were just disappointed in me. I gave a soft hum, but didn't say more. He wasn't the naive 20-year-old anymore. He understood now what people were really like. He knew that in both lives, I was the only one who had ever truly been good to him. Vanessa had always treated him like a disposable dog. Ethan sighed, his voice heavy with regret. You had every right to be disappointed. You saved me, but I thought you did it to trap me. I treated you like a schemer. I talked badly about you to our son, made him think you were a terrible person. You must have suffered so much. You probably wanted to scream at me, hit me, hate me. I didn't know what to say. There didn't seem to be any point in scolding him anymore. After all, I was the one who had clung to the marriage in our past life. We both died. It was all over. I was newly married, now truly happy with David, and I didn't have any room in my heart for hate anymore. I cut him off gently. It's all in the past. I've let it go. You should too. I set the fruit down and turned to leave, but Ethan grabbed my hand. Natalie, I realize now how wrong I was. They say it's never too late to make amends. Please, can you forgive me? I pulled my hand away quickly. Ethan, are you out of your mind? I'm married. Happily married. I love my husband. He stared at me like he couldn't believe it. In our past life, I'd always been the one clinging to him, so desperate, so devoted. I used to hold his hand when he was asleep just to feel close to him. He was clearly shaken. Then he suddenly smiled. Don't I know you by now?
You're too good to me.
You'd do anything for me, even if I hurt you over and over. You married David just to get into the factory. I don't blame you. But this game of pretending to love him has gone far enough. Go home, get a divorce. Then we can be together. That way, everyone will see the truth. You only married him to get back at me, but your heart still belongs to me. I looked at him in disbelief. I had overestimated him. I thought he had finally understood what he did wrong. But Noah was only sorry now because no one else wanted him. Ethan, I said firmly, my husband is outside that door right now. I didn't even want to come, right was his idea. Do you know why? He frowned. Because this marriage is fake? I shook my head.
No.
Because we love each other. He trusts me. And I'm loyal to him. As for you, even Vanessa doesn't want you. What makes you think I still would? I didn't give him a chance to answer. I turned and left, my pace steady. 6 months passed quickly. My bond with David grew deeper each day, and my mother's health improved too. Vanessa's wedding to the factory director's son went ahead as planned until Ethan ruined it. On the big day, he barged in carrying a few fish and threw them in her face. Didn't you say you wanted to eat fish I caught with my own hands? Here, I brought them for you. Vanessa nearly fainted from anger, but Ethan wasn't done. He grabbed the MC's microphone and announced to the entire room, Hey groom, did you know your bride's great at raising fish? No one got the reference except Vanessa. The groom looked confused, but he understood Ethan's malicious tone. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. And that's when Ethan spilled everything. He went on a full rant about his relationship with Vanessa, dragging up every intimate detail, including a vivid description of the mole on her backside. I still don't know if they had slept together by that point or if he was referring to something years ago. Either way, the wedding turned into a total disaster. The groom's family stormed out, furious. The next day, they filed for divorce. Vanessa's reputation was ruined in an instant. The very next day, Vanessa Reed was dragged to the courthouse by her fiancé to finalize their divorce. Her reputation was completely ruined. With nowhere to go and no one to turn to, she had no choice but to crawl back to Ethan Sullivan, begging him to marry her. But Ethan humiliated her and flatly refused. In the end, she had to hastily marry a divorced man over 20 years her senior, with barely enough to his name. Her entire family quietly packed up and moved away. After that, Ethan's parents started arranging blind dates for him. It's funny how a man's romantic scandals never really ruin his prospects. With Ethan's education and looks, there were still plenty of families willing to match their daughters with him. After a few dates, word spread that he was about to remarry. Then one night, as I was walking home after a late shift, Ethan appeared out of nowhere and blocked my path. I tensed instantly, frowning with suspicion. What do you want, Ethan? I asked sharply. He pulled a ring from his pocket like it was some kind of magic trick. This is the ring my mother gave me. I should have given it to you in our last life, but I gave it to Vanessa. I won't make that mistake again. This time, I want you to have it. Natalie, stop pretending. I know you still love me. After our last conversation, I was heartbroken. But then I heard you fainted in the workshop after finding out about my blind date. That proves you still care. So this was what it was all about. I rolled my eyes internally and placed my hand gently over my stomach. You're wrong. I didn't faint because of you. I fainted because I'm pregnant and I hadn't rested enough after working the night shift. His face twisted in disbelief. That's impossible. You're really with David? He must have forced you. You're sick, right? You don't know what you're doing. David and I are legally married. Why would he need to force me? I answered coolly. Ethan's hands trembled, still clutching the ring. But you loved me so much I finally understand now. God let us live again, so I could fix everything. I see Vanessa for who she really is, and I see you. You and I are destined. I let out a long sigh. Ethan, this second chance wasn't given just for your benefit. You've seen Vanessa clearly now, and I've seen you clearly too. There's no future between us. He shook his head like a man possessed. I love you. I love you now more than ever. How can I just let you go? My head ached from his delusions. You should let go. I'm already starting to show, and you're still clinging on like this. At the mention of my pregnancy again, Ethan's eyes lit up strangely. I get you want me to chase you until I'm standing at the gates of hell, right? That's what this is. You couldn't have gotten pregnant. Your health was always poor. There's no way. I raised an eyebrow. He wasn't wrong. Getting pregnant had been a nightmare in my past life. It took years of medication before I finally had good news. But that was because I damaged my body jumping into freezing water for him. I had trouble conceiving before because I threw myself into that icy river to save you. It messed up my body. But not because I was inherently infertile. You're a teacher, surely you know that exposing women to cold temperatures can lead to uterine issues. Ethan looked like he'd just swallowed a stone. Back then, I was in perfect health, no cramps, no issues. But after marrying him, I suffered from intense dysmenorrhea. I told him time and again that it was due to the cold from saving him. He never believed me. He called me manipulative, accused me of faking it for pity. Not once did he offer a bowl of brown sugar water or a hot compress. Not once. His face darkened. But don't you miss me? Don't you want me or our son? That's not my son, I snapped. He's your son. And in the last life, he helped push me to my death. I don't want a son like that. Ethan flinched, but he believed me. Deep down, he knew the boy was just like him. Selfish. Cold. Unfeeling. He stood there, speechless, until he found one last excuse. You got pregnant, and David didn't even pick you up from work? And you call that love? I pointed toward the street lamp behind him. He just wanted to get me some wonton soup. You may not believe it, but David and I love each other deeply. God gave me this new chance, not so I could fall for you again, but so I wouldn't miss the person who truly cares for me. Without waiting for his reply, I walked toward the glow of the streetlight toward David. When I reached him, he looked more anxious than ever. I had to ask several times before he finally confessed. I saw him give you the ring. I was scared, really scared you'd accept it. I laughed and patted his head gently. Even if you agreed, I wouldn't. That seemed to calm him. He finally looked like he believed I'd never leave. Even after all that had been said, Ethan still started following me to and from work every day like some pathetic ghost from the past. I told him again and again that there was no possibility between us, but he just smiled and said, I know I'm not worthy. I just keep remembering how you were attacked while pregnant in the past life, and I didn't protect you. I want to do better this time. I told him David was already protecting me, but Ethan insisted. Then I'll protect both of you. If David gets hurt, you'll be heartbroken, right? At least I can stop that. And so, every day, people saw David biking me to work, with Ethan quietly following behind. A few months later, I gave birth to a baby girl. She was big and strong, maybe too big because I couldn't give birth naturally. In the end, She came into the world through an emergency C-section. The blood loss was massive. David was terrified. He didn't tell anyone, but later I learned he went to the family planning center and got a vasectomy without saying a word just so I would never have to go through that again. It wasn't until I recovered that I found out. During the surgery, I almost died. I hemorrhaged so badly they needed urgent blood transfusion. And thankfully, Ethan and I had the same blood type. He donated an excessive amount enough to save me. After my confinement ended, I planned to thank him. But by then, he was already gone. Word came back that he had taken a post teaching in a remote village in the Northwest. He left behind a letter filled with apologies. He said he'd failed to raise a son with decency, and since he couldn't teach his own child properly, he'd dedicate the rest of his life to educating others. He had no plans to come back. And that was okay. In my heart, I knew he had finally repaid what he owed me in our last life. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I finally felt free.